Hello, my beautiful souls. My name is Nicole, and I'm here to help you reconnect with your light. It's been a few days since I last posted, and it's been a lot of things taking place over the past couple of weeks, especially with the full moon that took place last week. And it's safe to say that, as per usual, I've really been feeling these effects. So I hope that you've all been well and haven't been struggling too much with the shifts taking place in energies. But this morning I'd like to talk about trauma. I'd like to talk about the fact that we have all experienced trauma. And I think most of us think that when we talk about trauma, we always think about some horrific thing that might have happened. But now the trauma I'd like to talk about is our childhood trauma. Each and every single one of us out there has experienced trauma. We have all experienced childhood trauma, and all of our trauma stems from childhood trauma. So what does that mean exactly? Well, the thing is, we all had difficult experiences growing up as a child, and when we look back on those experiences, it might feel like they weren't that bad, but when we were experiencing them as a child, I can tell you that we were not properly equipped to deal with these issues. And as a result, we end up growing up into broken adults. So I've taken the liberty to write down a few points here. And what's to say is, the number one thing that we must do is we must learn to forgive our parents, because everything comes from the way we were parented. Our parents did the absolute best that they could to parent us in the best way that they knew how. And this is where we talk about generational trauma, because if our parents were traumatized by their parents, then they weren't taught how to parent other than their own experience of being parented. And as a result, they end up parenting us in the same way that they were parented. I'll give you an example. My father was born in 1922. And this means that he was about 65 years old when I was born. So you can imagine he was from a very different generation, and he was obviously raised in a way that was acceptable at that time. There was not a lot of mothering. Children were meant to be seen, not heard, almost as if children were, what's the word? It's almost as if children became an additional asset that they could claim and say, hey, I've accomplished my life because now I'm married and had a child. And well, we can easily see that that narrative is still present in today's world, but obviously things are a little bit different. The woman is not at home, the man is not the one who's now out being the sole bread earner. And as a result, my father parented me the same way that he was parented, but in a very different time. And so that obviously led to some difficulties in my own childhood experience. For example, in his childhood, there wasn't a lot of tactility. People didn't show emotions that much, at least not in a physical aspect. And so what that means is I grew up not being physically touched very much by my father, and that led to me really not liking being touched by anybody. So it's hard to believe that some such simple things can end up having really traumatic effects all the way into our adult life. So it's important to forgive our parents. It's important to understand that they too are just humans, that they did the best they could with what they knew. And because they too had childhood trauma, this trauma was just simply passed on through their parenting style. So understanding that our parents did the best that they could, and they weren't trying to actively hurt us, that at the end of the day, the only reason that we're all walking around triggering each other is because we haven't been equipped with the mechanisms that we need to cope with our emotions. In many of my previous videos, I've talked about the importance of processing our emotions, of feeling our emotions, because if we don't at the time that they're taking place, then they have a nasty habit of catching up with us down the line. And so this is what I mean by childhood trauma. When we were children, the trauma that we experienced, and now trauma could simply have just been something like our parents saying, no, don't do that, that's bad, you're a bad boy. And the thing is, you're a bad girl. And now the thing is that the things that parents should be saying to their children is, don't do that, that's bad behavior. Because when we are children, our brains are in a different state of vibration. So So when we are children, our brains are in theta. And theta is the brainwave state in which we are when we are in deep meditation and when we are in REM sleep. So we always probably wonder, why is it so easy for children to learn things, whereas in adulthood not so much? Well, this is for one because of the neuroplasticity of our brains. And what is neuroplasticity? Well, neuroplasticity is how easily our brains can be altered. The mappings, the connections within our brains, how easily they can be changed over time. And because as children between age 0 to 7, we are in theta, our brains are like a sponge, and we can literally absorb all the information taking place around us within seconds. We absorb so much because the brain yet hasn't been conditioned. We haven't yet stored tons of information in our brains that it's very easy to bring in new information. It's, for example, like this cup. This cup is full of water, but if this cup were empty, I would be able to fill more water into it than if I was trying to fill water into an already full cup. So this is the same thing with our brains. So as children, our brains are more open to receive information. But also because from age 1 to 5, we're very much in our ego. And the thing is, if you look at children, everything is about me. It's always me, 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 me. The way children like to throw tantrums, for example, when they don't get what they want, it's because they're so within their ego. And our belief systems are developed completely between the ages 1 to 5. So what do we really know about the world between ages 1 to 5? We don't really know anything other than the experiences that we are having in the world. And so we develop the basis of our entire belief system based on everything that happens between those 5 years of life. So anything our parents tell us or any experiences that we have lead us to believe that that is the way the world will always be. Now the thing is, this is where we bring in the concept of limited beliefs, because limited beliefs are beliefs that are within you that you don't even know that they're there. They're so deep within our subconscious that we don't even realize that our beliefs are there. We might believe it's easy for me to make money, but our parents might have told us continuously through our childhood, money doesn't grow on trees. Now what did that result to within our adult brains is that, well, we have to work hard in order to gain money. If we would see our parents working really hard and they would say things like, oh, don't waste your food, money doesn't grow on trees. Well, the thing is, as a 5-year-old, we start to believe that the only way that we can then gain money is by working extremely hard. So it's important to understand that those beliefs that were created within the first 5 years, the experiences that we had within the first 5 years of our lives, are really what are going to determine the way that we move through our entire lives. And so if those first 5 or 7 years of our childhood were traumatic, then it's safe to say that we then start to move through the world with trauma. And if we weren't equipped with tools and processes to deal with those emotions that we felt at the time, then those emotions, they stay blocked within us, and we carry them around for the rest of our adulthood until we learn how to process and deal with them. So another point that I've written here is that, yes, our beliefs are created before the age of 5. And so if we cannot heal our inner child, we cannot change the foundation of our beliefs. So the number one thing that we must learn to do in order to deal with our trauma and in order to move forward and in order to change the limiting beliefs upon which our entire belief system has been founded upon, it means that there is an important task that we need to take, which is to reconnect with our inner child, to travel back to our childhood and to deal with the traumatic experiences that we experienced at that time. So any child that was living in a family where the relationship between mother and father was not great, if there were parents who were constantly fighting, if there was perhaps people who lived in a situation where there was physical abuse or emotional abuse, well, that gets translated down to us, or that gets translated down to us as we were children, because we then grew up believing it is okay for people to treat us this way. Now, all of the relationships that we have in our life are based on the relationships that we had with our parents. So if we did not have a healthy relationship with our parents, if we did not ever experience healthy relationships, then it's safe to say that we will not exactly grow up having healthy relationships even as adults. Now, I can say that this is definitely a pattern of mine, that my father was an extremely strict man. He would run our household more like we lived in a military than we were living in a family. And so it's safe to say that I grew up in absolute terror. He would fly off the handle in anger and rage for no apparent reason, and it would always be very scary because neither my sister and I would ever know why he might decide to erupt. And it was like tiptoeing around a volcano that was getting ready to erupt. We just never knew when he might erupt. And so you can imagine we were living in a state of constant anxiety. We were living in a constant state of stress. And just the way that adults today are living in a world of constant chronic stress because we do not know how to cope with all the overwhelming things that are taking place around us, especially with what is happening now during COVID times. Everyone is in chronic stress because the world as we know it has changed in such profound ways that we just simply don't know what's going to happen from day to day. And if we don't know how to process that, and because we haven't been taught how to process our emotions and to deal with this constant fear that is living inside of us, then how do you start to move forward? So it's important to start to look back over those first 5 to 7 years of your life and just question, what was the family relationships like? What was the family dynamics like? How did your parents treat you? How did anybody who was present in your household treat you? And ask yourself if you see those same patterns showing up in your life today. I mean, my father didn't always treat me in the best of way, and not because he didn't want to treat me well, but because he didn't know how, because he neither was taught how to treat his children, should I say, with more love and affection. He barely ever touched us because as a child he was also not touched very much. So the thing is, we must learn to forgive. With everything that is taking place at this time in the world, the number one thing we need to do is learn to forgive, because the only people that we are hurting by not forgiving, by holding on to that resentment, we're only hurting ourselves. Because when we hold on to all that anger, when we hold on to all that resentment, it starts to have an effect on us physically, but it also brings down our vibration. So, beautiful souls, start to question what your childhood was like. Because what happens now is, when we weren't equipped with those tools in childhood to deal with all the trauma that we were experiencing, well, we then started to develop coping mechanisms in which to self-soothe. So, in adulthood, this can very much be translated into drinking. There is a huge drinking culture in today's world, and why is it that everybody seeks to escape reality by getting absolutely shit-faced, excuse my language? And I know this because I used to be a heavy drinker. I was very heavily reliant on alcohol to get me through any single day, because I just didn't feel that I could cope with everything that was going on around me. Drugs are another way. Having sex with random people is another way of self-soothing. We've been taught about instant gratification. We have been taught that the only way to find a way to cope with whatever we are feeling is something that will get us instant gratification, to get us out of that state of anxiety or stress. And so maybe it's eating, maybe it's watching too much TV. It could be anything, but the thing is, these coping mechanisms are not healthy and they do not serve us, because instead of going to the root of the problem, we try and escape whatever emotions we're feeling in that point. So it's important to start to question, what coping mechanisms are you using in order to get away from all of these fears and anxiety that stem from your childhood? And until you take the time to go back to your childhood and start to re-question the experiences that you had back then, start to question the relationships that you had with your parents, and maybe it's a good time now that you're an adult and you know that you have the strength within yourselves to be able to cope with whatever things come up. Because the good thing is you have already experienced those experiences when you were a child. And the thing is when we suppress those experiences so much, it can be scary to go back to them, because it feels like all these emotions are going to flood back into us so much. And that is scary, it is. But beautiful souls, the good thing is you're not having to live them again. You have already lived them. What you need to do now is to process the emotions around those experiences that you had as a child. So beautiful souls, the good thing is that you have already done a majority of the healing. The good thing is that now is a chance to overcome all that pain that you have experienced. So the next point that I've written down here is that when we don't feel safe as a child, this is connected to our root chakra. For those of you who are not familiar with the chakra system is that we have 7 chakras within the body, and this is in the yogi system. We talk about the 7 main energy centers of our body. I'll be posting a video on the chakra systems in the coming weeks, so please stay tuned for that if you want to learn more about that. But the root chakra is the chakra that dominates the feelings of fear. And all the fear that we feel today, whether that was from childhood, whether that is from adulthood, is because there is an imbalance within our root chakra. And that comes from those first 6, 7 years of our lives. If we did not feel safe in childhood, if we grew up in circumstances that did not allow for us to feel safe, whatever that may be, maybe it was a shouting parent, maybe it was a household where we didn't feel loved, we didn't feel wanted, we didn't feel like we could be who we wanted. Perhaps it was like for me, my father would constantly tell me to be quiet whenever I spoke up. This made me feel that I was not worthy to be heard, as I've stated in some of my previous videos. And so when we grow up feeling like we cannot be heard, or we do not feel safe, this makes us continue growing all the way into adulthood, feeling like we are not safe in this world. So working on that chakra, on that root chakra, will start to help. And the way we work on that root chakra is by going back and starting to deep dive into how our life was in those first 6 years of our lives. So it's important to try and question, why is it we don't feel safe? Because of those childhood years. Beautiful souls, I know that this is not an easy experience. I know it is not an easy journey, but the thing is, there are people out there to support you, to help you through this journey. Speaking to your parents now when you're older, it's a beautiful thing. I unfortunately no longer have my parents with me, so I cannot go and heal those relationships, but having taken the time to speak to people around me and work through my own fears has helped me to make peace and to understand that my parents did the best that they could, and had they known any better, they would have done things differently. So the next thing that we have here is we have a deep need for love and affection as we grow. We need that maternal, nurturing protection from our parents. That is why our parents are here. Our parents are not here to dictate the way we live our lives. Our parents are here to give us the love and support we need so that we may develop and become the person that we are destined to be. And when we don't have that love, when we don't experience that unconditional love, and unconditional love is simply loving somebody in spite and despite everything that they may trigger within you. So learning to find that love within ourselves now as adults, and knowing that no matter what happens, we will continue to give ourselves that love that we were not able to get from our parents as children. This will start to help us feel that we are able to move through a world in less fear than we did as children. So this is how limiting beliefs are created. Our limiting beliefs are created because of the way and how we went through our childhood years. So now, as we are in adulthood, it's important to start to uncreate all these limiting beliefs. Start to question, what is the foundation upon which your beliefs were created? What do you believe about yourself today? Do you believe that you are unworthy? Do you believe that you are not good enough to go after the dreams that you desire for yourself so strongly? Do you believe that you do not have what it takes? Beautiful souls, I can tell you now that the reason you do not believe is because of that trauma you experienced in your childhood years. It's time to take the reins back into your own hands, to start to take charge of your own life and to start to question, how can I start to do things differently? The way you can start to do things differently, beautiful souls, is by loving yourself more than anything else in this world. It's by choosing to put yourselves first no matter what. And yes, we have been taught to believe that putting ourselves first makes us selfish, but no, beautiful souls, it does not. Because how can you continue to give to yourself, to all the people who depend on you, the friends, the family, the co-workers, colleagues, anyone around you who has any kind of dependence on you being in this world? The only way you can continue to show up for them, beautiful souls, is by loving yourself, by putting yourself first, by questioning, what are my needs and what can I do to make sure that those needs are met? So beautiful souls, I hope that this video has given you some clarity. I hope that this video helps you to understand that you are beautiful just the way you are. And the only reason that you do not believe that is because of your parents' conditioning, because of the way society, our teachers, the way that we lived our childhood years, and the way every single person that we interacted with didn't know that everything that they could say or do was going to end us traumatizing us for the years to come. And this would have major damaging impacts in even our adult years. So beautiful souls, the good news is the time has come for you to change your life. The time has come to give you the opportunity to go after your dreams wholeheartedly, because you know that you are loved, you know that you are enough, and you know that you have all it takes to make all your dreams come true. I wish you all a beautiful Easter celebration. I wish you so much love and light, and I ask that you please share this video, like this video, subscribe to the channel in case you want to keep hearing more from me. Love and light to you all, and have a beautiful day.